The Vietnam Memories channel is proud to present a deeply authentic memoir of a veteran from the Vietnamese Commando forces, Vu Quang Dong, recounting the sacrifices and hardships of life and the battle against the invaders and the Saigon puppet army to win independence and freedom for the fatherland. Forward. The resistance war against the U.S. to save the country, liberate the South, and unify the nation has receded for nearly half a century. But for us soldiers, we can never forget the Truong Son Mountains engulfed in endless forest winds, the dry, scorching bamboo and dipterocarp forests, the jungle rains that hindered our marches, the chronic and lingering malaria, and the moments of sharing sacrifices with our comrades. Entering my 70s, my steps have slowed. My eyes are no longer sharp and my hands have begun to tremble. The nights have become too long, yet sleep does not come. Suddenly, the images and faces of my comrades reappear. They charged forward, they fell, and they still shielded me. The soldier's heart within me stirs once again. The remembrance is deep, intense, and gnawing. And it feels as though someone is urging me to write down those days of enduring hardships, staying close to the land and the people, not moving an inch, not leaving a single centimeter, together with my brothers in arms. The stories I tell are not driven by literary inspiration, but rather by the remembrance of my old unit, just a commando subdivision under Subregion 1, North Saigon, Gia Dinh. The stories I tell do not follow a chronological order. Wherever my memory goes, I write it down there. I hope to redraw the faces of my barefoot iron-willed comrades who held their ground in the Iron Land, the arduous yet heroic eastern region. I would like to burn a stick of incense to pay tribute to the comrades who sacrificed their lives so that we could live until now. Where you rest, the forest winds still blow, recounting the unforgettable years of a generation that did not spare their own blood and flesh, living and dying along with the destiny of the country and the nation. Swept away by the war, these are merely the memories of a soldier carrying deep thoughts to leave behind for future generations. Chapter 1. Following the Call to Move Out. 1. The first day of enlistment. In 1968, turning exactly 18 years old, I finished the 10 out of 10 grade and passed my graduation exam for Level 3, which is now called high school graduation. After half a month of summer vacation, coming from the Commune People's Committee, my cousin who worked as the Commune military chief came straight to my house and handed me 2 pieces of paper. One was an enlistment order, and the other was an admission letter to the University of Agriculture 1 in Trao Quai, Hanoi. My cousin only said, "You choose for yourself," and then left immediately. If anyone says that the young people of that era, when standing before those 2 paths, joining the army meant walking into death and going to study meant having a brighter future, did not have any lingering thoughts, anxieties, or hesitations, then they are not human. Following that, a week later, I received another notice to go study abroad in the Soviet Union. It was truly my fate not to go abroad, but just like the other village boys of that era, I chose the path, joining the army. During the troop recruitment phase in July 1968, throughout the entire Binh Xuyen district of Vinh Phuc province, many young men enlisted, but only 7 of us brothers were selected into the Commando arms, including Mr. Nguyen Van Hong from Tan Lang Commune, Tran Van Lang and Nguyen Van Tong from Tan Phong Commune, Nguyen Van Oan from Ba Hien Commune, Le Din Uk, Nguyen Van Dao, and myself from Dao Duc Commune. Mr. Hong was the oldest, a cadre with an intermediate degree in fisheries, and already had a wife and child. Yuk and I were classmates in Class 10B at Ben Tre High School, Phuc Yen Town. Dao and Thong had both graduated from high school the year before. Lang was already a cadre of the Commune's youth union. Only Oan had finished 7th grade and stayed at home working the fields. The day of enlistment was July 23rd. In the morning, at exactly 7 o'clock, we went up to the district military command to gather. Once the troops were fully assembled, we immediately marched on foot to Pu Quang Commune, Kim An District, Vinh Phu Province, which is now Sok San District, Hanoi. At that temporary accommodation site, brothers who enlisted together from many provinces arrived one after another to gather. After we received our military gear, were assigned to our units, and finished arranging our accommodations, the sky turned dark. On the first night away from home, everyone lost sleep. I was no exception. It was a very strange, nostalgic feeling. But eventually, I drifted off to sleep without knowing when. The next morning, everyone went for a medical re-examination and nearly 20 people were disqualified. Ledin Uk was overweight, 68 kilograms, and overheight, 1 meter 72, placing him on the list to be sent back to his locality. However, he cut his hand. Actually, he used a sewing needle to prick his fingertip for blood to write a volunteer letter, so he was allowed to stay. More than 10 other people also wrote volunteer letters in blood, but only 8 were permitted to remain. The superiors announced that we would stay for 3 days to wait for brothers from other provinces to assemble fully before heading to the training ground. Taking advantage of the time before the movement order, the 7 of us from Bin Suyen asked for permission to quickly return home for a farewell gathering with our loved ones, and the commander agreed. Because they were in a different squad, Uk and Dao were quicker on their feet and managed to call their families to pick them up. Those 2 fellow countryman friends were in such a rush, leaving just me to walk out to the road to head back. Perhaps thanks to the brand new military uniform, I was given a lift on a bicycle by an uncle, probably an official, as he was wearing a satchel. Arriving at May Village, Than Van Hamlet, Than Lam Commune, Yen Lang District, Vinh Phu Province, which is now My Linh District, Hanoi, I went into the house of a female classmate, who is my old lady now, to borrow a Soviet children's bicycle to ride home. A bit tired, but the moment I reached the gate, I was immediately questioned by my old man whether I had deserted. No matter how I explained, he still did not believe me. Only when Dao, Uk, and the receiving military officer, who seemed to have a family connection with Nguyen Van Dao's older sister, working at the propaganda department of the Vinh Phu Provincial Party Committee, came to testify, did he finally believe? I secretly thought to myself that his worry was justified. In wartime, with his position as the standing deputy secretary of the Provincial Party Committee, if his son were to desert, how could he face the people and the party? My old man would find it difficult to speak when it came to calling for and encouraging other cadres and party members to send their children to the front. But from the perspective of a father, I think he also felt heartbroken when his child's education was left unfinished. Later on, I learned that in 1971, Mr. Kim Ngok, the output contracting secretary of Vinh Phuc, also sent his son Kim Nam into the army, also in the Commando branch. Kim Nam was in the 429th Commando Regiment and did not return to the north until 1976. Vinh Phuc is truly a land with many strange stories. The whole family gathered for a reunion meal. On the tray there were dishes of duck meat, the product of my own livestock raising, a very notable achievement of my student days as an asphalt plowman, pumpkin soup grown by my mother, and rice mixed with corn. Well, to say it grandly, but actually it was corn mixed with rice. The meal was incredibly delicious. Even now, I still remember the piece of meat my old man directly placed into my bowl. That afternoon, 2 journalists, Mr. Nguyen Tao, chief editor of the Vinh Phuc newspaper, and Mr. Lai Hu Dieu, a photojournalist, came to our house, and so the whole family had a few commemorative photos taken. If anything unfortunate were to happen to me, those photos would probably be the only things placed on the altar. Our enlistment order was for the 305th Airborne Commando Brigade. That was what it was called back then. The predecessor of the 305th Airborne Brigade was the 305th Infantry Division, established in 1954 in Quang Ngai. By March 19, 1967, the entire brigade was transferred to the Commando Arms. However, the military officer who accompanied Uk and Dao to my house, who wore the blood patch with 2 stars and 1 stripe, the rank of lieutenant, which was already very grand back then, told my old man that new recruits must participate in infantry training first for a duration of 2 months. Back then, infantry trained for 3 months before heading to the south. The training unit was the 246th Regiment Viet Bac Military Region, stationed in Son Duong, Tuyen Quang. After 3 days in Pu Quang Commune, we rode in military trucks heading north to Tuyen Quang, joining C2, D2 of the 246th Regiment for infantry training. The dirt roads of Tuyen Quang were bumpy, the forests and mountains were gloomy, the reeds grew dense, and only occasionally would a stilt house roof appear. The population here was very sparse. Along the way, we encountered many groups of soldiers marching on foot in the opposite direction of our trucks. The soldiers carried heavy backpacks, K-44 rifles, circular magazine, K-43 submachine guns, pickaxes and shovels tied to the bottom of their backpacks, and towels draped over their shoulders. Everyone had a walking stick to prevent slipping when climbing slopes. Later on, I learned that they were on a field march. Our barracks consisted of bamboo huts located deep within the dense forest. There were plenty of wild bananas. When peeled, they smelled fragrant, and although they had many seeds, they were sweet as honey. The bamboo forest was interspersed with tall timber trees, and leeches were countless. On the first night in the forest, listening to the call of the bat-ko-troi-kot bird, the large hawk cuckoo, and the mournful cries of the geckos, not many of us could fall asleep right away. Thanks to that, we had time to talk, introduce ourselves, and get to know one another. From strangers, we became comrades, close brothers of one big family. Only when the commander urged us to sleep did everyone settle down, and after closing our eyes for just a short while, the reveille horn blew for the morning. After staying in Son Duong for a month, we transferred to Dai Tu, Bac Tai Province, stationed in Pu Quang Commune, living together with the local Tay ethnic people. A great deal of jicama was grown here. For every single meal, we had either stir-fried jicama or ate it raw. Just like in Son Duong, we also had wild bamboo shoots, if not stir-fried, then boiled, and even cooked in soup. It was very delicious too. The ethnic people here made steamed rice rolls, ban kuon, dipped in savory soy sauce, which was highly appealing. Occasionally, our platoon would place orders with the locals to make these cakes as a treat for one another. To the first commanders, our second company gathered more than 100 brothers from various provinces: Bac Tai, Phu Tho, Vinh Phuc, Hanoi, Ha Tai, Tuyen Quang, and Yen Bai. There were only a few older brothers who had prior work experience and were party members, such as Mr. Hong from Tan Lang, who held an intermediate degree in fisheries, Mr. Ho from Nam Quang, Sok Son, a junior high school teacher, Mr. Long from Pu Thong, Bac Tai, a cooperative accountant. There were more than 20 people who had just graduated from level 3 high school like me. The company brought together 2 ethnic groups, the Kin and the Tay. There were more than 30 Tay brothers. My squad had 2, Mr. Long from Yen Bai and Hien from Pu Thong, Bac Tai. My squad had 12 people, and Mr. Long from Bac Tai served as the squad leader. The unit also had two other soldiers named Long, one from Da Phuc, Sok Son, Hanoi, and another from Phu Tho. Mr. Hung from Tuyen Quang and I were assigned as assistant squad leaders. Thinking back, it felt quite grand, because having just entered the army, before knowing the ins and outs of anything, we were already assigned as commanders. Sure, our company commander was named Dong, coming from the central region. His voice was raspy, so we had to be very quiet to hear his points clearly. Later on, we learned the reason. It was the consequence of a neck wound from the time he fought in Quang Tri back in 1966. Captain Dong was extremely dedicated to teaching us infantry combat knowledge, from using various types of weapons to different landmines, the enemy's trapping tactics, and how to disarm them, from how to carry a backpack, set up a tarp, hang a hammock, to organizing the marching formation. He taught us how to dig bunkers and trenches, camouflage, and erase tracks. He even replaced the combat medics to teach us how to bandage, perform battlefield first aid, prevent and handle incidents on the road, snakes, centipedes, scorpions, and many other useful things. This was very practical military knowledge for us later on. It must be said that Company Commander Dong was the most impressive commander in my soldiering life. He never bragged about the history of the wounds on his body, but instead always recalled memories of his old unit and comrades, a commander deeply seasoned on the battlefield. The company political officer was called by us the "We win, the enemy loses" man, and we nicknamed him Brother Chin, which means politics. We called him that so much that it became a habit. He himself agreed with it and also forgot his own given name. Anyone who called him Chin, he would respond to it all. Soldiers really have so many humorous stories. Normally, Brother Chin was very exemplary, because when standing on the podium giving lectures, who wouldn't be serious? But when going out to the training field, he became a completely different person, quick as a squirrel. All of his master operations, not just standard movements, were precise. As for his sniping talent, needless to say, not a single shot fell outside the 8 to 9 ring. We knew he enlisted in 1963. From 1964 to 1966, he was at the Quang, Da Front, Quang Nam, Da Nang, which was incredibly fierce. Perhaps being a political officer meant everyone had to set an example, and Brother Chin was no exception. Back in those days, being a commander of a training unit, one could still act arrogant. However, Brother Chin never did that. Everyone knows that field marching is one of the most dreaded games in a soldier's life, dreaded to the very core, not just because it is extremely arduous, but because it is a contest of persistent, resilient endurance, no less than a torturous ordeal by the enemy aimed at breaking one's fighting spirit, with some comparing it to be even harsher than what Nguyen Duc Tuan described in his work, Indomitable. Field marching is a torment of the nerves, and one must be incredibly tough to endure it. During the first days of field marching, we were equipped with CKC rifles, our backs carrying backpacks filled with soil, rocks, and bricks weighing exactly 17 kilograms. They were properly weighed and measured. If it was heavier, it was fine. If it was lighter, more had to be added. Because of the long distances, not a few people in the unit lost their strength, ran out of breath, and were forced to lag behind. For training commanders, they could have stuffed straw or something else into their backpacks just to make them puff up as if they contained soil and bricks, and no one would have questioned it. As for our commanders, Mr. Dong and Mr. Chin, who were also wounded veterans, no one could have complained if they did so, yet they still voluntarily weighed their backpacks in front of the soldiers. Mr. Dong carried 17 kilograms, while Mr. Chin always carried 20 kilograms. Mr. Chin was also the one who had to walk at the very end of the marching column, trudging along to gather the lagging soldiers. During every field march, we would walk from early morning until dark before returning to the barracks. We practiced walking 2 days every week. At first unaccustomed to it, many people gradually discarded bricks and rocks along the way to lighten their shoulders. Once they got used to it later on, no one reduced the bricks or soil along the road anymore. Practicing long-distance marching required passing through many different terrains. We had to progress from easy to difficult, from short distances extending to long ones. As for practicing climbing passes and wading through streams, every week we had to cross Ni Pass and K Pass once. Field training on the Tam Dao mountain range usually lasted for 2 days. We practiced sleeping overnight in the forest, setting up tarps, hanging hammocks, and cooking field meals. During each of those relentless forest trips, the entire unit had to walk barefoot. The political officer and company commander, just like us, went barefoot. On the first day, unaccustomed to it, everyone suffered from sore feet, but then we got used to it. Many brothers went barefoot all the time, only washing their feet and putting on sandals when going to sleep. Before crossing a slope, Mr. Chin would once again move up to the middle of the troop column to encourage the soldiers, and every single time he walked with the very last soldiers to overcome the challenge together. Looking back now, I realize that the exemplary conduct of the political officer possessed an immense power. If the mind is not clear, even carrying a water canteen feels heavy is absolutely true. Perhaps it was from those rigorous trials that later on, when we crossed the Truong Son range with guns, ammunition, and heavy backpacks, where the shortest person carried 30 kilograms and the heaviest carried 36 kilograms, we still had enough strength to climb passes, wade through streams, and trek through the forest for months on end from the north to the south. There were people like Mr. Kim from Hoang Kim, Yen Lang, Vien Phuc, now My Linh, Hanoi, who caught a cold and had to stay behind at military station T3, yet as soon as he recovered, he bypassed 3 military stations to catch up with the unit. Our group had 82 people, and upon arriving in the southeast region, only 6 were absent due to malaria, an incredibly wonderful safety rate for DIB heading to the southern battlefield. Our deputy company commander was named Nghia. He had a complexion that anyone who saw it would be frightened because it was as moldy looking as a buffalo's skin, just a bit less than a python skin. He came from the same hometown as Mr. Dong, fought on the same battlefield, but was in a different unit. He was cheerful and very enthusiastic about teaching us all the martial arts moves, or what we call combat skills, that he knew. Those included tactics, defense experiences, hand-to-hand combat, fighting against commandos and scouts, and how to survive in the jungle as well as in urban areas. Mr. Nghia loved to tell stories about the battles he had participated in. We would listen with our mouths wide open, admiring him more and more. However, unlike the political officer, Mr. Nghia spoke a lot about dangerous situations and the deaths, which we still call sacrifices, of his comrades. Among them, there were even battles where we did not win, which were called combat precedents. He often said a sentence that even now I have not forgotten. That was, "Don't you boys think that by entering the battlefield late, there won't even be empty tin cans left for you to pick up. Far from it. This war will still require a great deal of sacrifice." Then someone repeated this sentence to Mr. Chin, thinking they were score settling or making a big merit, implying that this person had some bad intentions toward Mr. Nghia. Little did they know, during the Monday morning flag-raising ceremony, Mr. Chin brought the story out in front of the entire troop column. He spoke directly. Comrade Ngia is right. It's just that it needs to be explained more clearly so the brothers avoid misunderstandings. No matter how difficult and arduous it gets, we will definitely win because we have justice on our side. Let no one doubt this. I don't know if the person who went to tattle was standing beneath the flag listening to what the political officer said. If so, they must have received a well-deserved lesson. And if they are still alive today, they are probably still carrying the shame of a cowardly person. An old story from so long ago, but it was also a blood and flesh experience. 3. Joining the Commando branch for training. After nearly 2 months of infantry training, we were welcomed by the 305th Commando Brigade to Quang Oai, Ha Tai for specialized branch training. The moment of parting with our infantry commanders was deeply moving. They came to shake hands with each and every one of us, so full of lingering attachment. Carrying those infantry lessons with us, we entered the battlefield. In the hearts of the commando soldiers who once wore the uniform of the 246th Regiment, the deep affection for the commanders of C2, D2 remains completely intact. The 246th Regiment, formerly the 15th Regiment established in 1948, was named the Tan Trao Division by Uncle Ho. It was the Guard Regiment of the party, twice achieving the title of Hero of the People's Armed Forces. We joined the Commando Arms under the unit designation E14D2 of the 305th Brigade. In the infantry, the letter E designated the regiment level, but in 1968, within the commandos, E was used to designate the company level, a naming convention that apparently existed since the time the brigade was still an airborne unit. The way commando units were called differed from the infantry. In the infantry, what was a battalion was called a lien doi, intercompany/group. In the commandos, a company was called a doi, team/unit. A platoon was called a fandoi, sub-unit. There were no squads, only 4-man teams, toe. The soldiers were called chien dao vien, combatants. Our lindoi was trained in commando scout skills. The lindoi leader, battalion commander, was named Kai. It was said that he was a commando veteran from the Quang, Da Front, decorated with many medals. Our doi leader, company commander, was named Nguyen Xuan Kin, nicknamed Lin Kin. The political officer was named Chan. I do not remember his last name. Deputy doi leader Pham Van Bi. Deputy political officer Nguyen Quoc Hoan. To this day, only Mr. Hoan, the deputy political officer, is still alive, currently residing in Bien Hoa City, Dong Nai Province. Mr. Kin suffered from malaria upon reaching the military station near the Vietnam-Cambodia border and could not march down with us. Mr. Chan and Mr. B transferred to the 429th Commando Regiment. I heard that in June 1972, both of them made the ultimate sacrifice at Lai Khe. The Phan Doi leaders were Lan, Nam, Lan, and Trin, all of whom were airborne soldiers transferred from the 305th Brigade. Because of this, nearly 20 of us who met the health requirements were selected to learn additional tactics and skills of airborne soldiers. I was in the subunit of Mr. Lan, a native of Kwevo Ha Bak. He did not head south, DIB, but stayed behind to serve as the training cadre framework. Mr. Nam and Mr. Lan went to the 114th Regiment. I met them again in 1972, but after that, I lost track of their news. My E14 unit was stationed in Quang Oai, Ha Tai. The training grounds for attacking strongholds were Tong Len and Bat Bat. Practicing drifting was done on the Red River. Practicing underwater combat was at Soi Hai. Practicing airport attacks was at Long Bien, Hanoi. And practicing urban combat was in Son Tay Town. During the day, we practiced martial arts, various shooting styles, assembling firearms, and making booby traps. From evening until nearly the end of the night, we practiced infiltration, crawling through fences, disarming mines, camouflaging, hiding ourselves under the mud, and burying our bodies on hills and in open areas. The most difficult discipline was still crawling through various types of fences. Among them, there were concertina wire fences and pig pen timber fences rigged with numerous types of booby trap mines. Just a minor oversight, and a mine would explode, and the commander would make us start all over from the beginning. In my subunit, Mr. Lan even had a trick of making us practice aiming and shooting in the rain. 2 people would take turns aiming, with one person taking a water canteen to drip water onto the forehead of the person aiming. Our eyes would get completely blurred. Before we could even wipe our faces, more water had already been dripped. Practicing under such difficult conditions, yet the brothers liked it very much. Some even borrowed watering cans from the locals to simulate rain for their comrades to practice shooting. The most exhausting discipline was crossing rivers without floats. The infantry had nylon sheets to tie up into floats, but we did not. Full gear and weapons intact, we swam across the Red River and then swam back. One evening every week we would go to practice swimming. At first, everyone gulped down water until their bellies were full, but we gradually got used to it. Once we became proficient, we transitioned to practicing drifting while carrying explosive blocks. Initially, it was a few bricks, then a laterite stone. Later on, it was raised to 2 laterite stones. During the first few days of drifting with heavy loads, most of us choked on water because the snorkels were too short, making our noses burn fiercely. Later, the brothers replaced them with longer snorkels, so we no longer choked on water. Laboring and training diligently, in the end, everyone could do it. The 2 most tense subjects were shooting and martial arts. Regarding the branch, being able to hold a K-54 pistol made every guy excited, but when it came to shooting, it was truly difficult. The first time at a range of 30 meters, most of the brothers missed the target. Shooting an AK rifle tucked under the armpit was the same. Shooting from a half-exposed body position behind a wall was the hardest. The targets kept popping up and closing, and we had to choose the exact moment the target revealed itself to fire. The mantra we reminded each other was, if we don't hit it first, it will shoot us dead. Therefore, every single guy tried his best to practice shooting as fast as possible. In the training unit, combat readiness alarms were the most complicated game designed to forge a sense of vigilance. There were no sirens, exploding shells, or any noises at all, but rather one person waking up another by tapping on their foot. Exactly 3 taps at a time, but you were only allowed to tap up to the second time. If for some reason someone did not wake up, the brothers would not call them anymore. This subject always caused tension. Many nights while sleeping soundly, we would be called up. Orders were issued and everyone moved out. Sometimes right after assembling, calling roll, and checking gear and weapons, the commander would let us go back to sleep. There were nights we called each other up to 3 times, making us exhausted and irritated. Yet, we gradually grew accustomed to such sudden occurrences. A sweaty training field means a less bloody battlefield is a truly valuable piece of advice. In the afternoon, after having dinner, the infantry would be allowed to rest, but the commandos would not. At 7 p.m., after listening to the newspaper reading session, everyone marched into the eucalyptus forest more than 1 kilometer away from our quarters to practice martial arts. There were 3 evenings of training every week. Some nights we were so absorbed in training until 1 or 2 a.m., Deputy Doi Leader Pham Van B told us, When entering close combat, you are only allowed to strike to kill, not to wave your hands and feet around for show. It is the same when using a dagger. Once you thrust, it must be definitive. Because we had to learn distinct professional skills, we were only allowed to study at night. It was exhausting but interesting, so everyone was eager to learn. Entering the battlefield, only then did I see how right Mr. B's words were. Just comparing physical strength. Our side suffered from chronic malaria, while the enemy was fully fed and well nourished. The Rangers and Scouts were trained in martial arts very thoroughly, proficiently, and possessed a brutal, animalistic nature. In those hand-to-hand battles, if one's offense was not definitive and defense was not tight, death would belong to oneself. In 1973, while we were in Nguyen Duc Commune, Cu Chi, we were taught the Mai Hoa Quien, plum blossom fist, formed by an old woman whom we called Ma Hai, Mother Hai. Ma read the martial mantra aloud, Ngoch Tran Ngan Dai Phan Tahu, Tan Khai Kap Tu Toi Ta Bin. Ma danced it beautifully, but its practicality was not very high. Sometime later, we were taught combat martial arts by an old man named Sao, also in Nguyen Duc, which included the plum blossom fist, but formatted for men, with stronger and more definitive movements. In 2007, when I visited the 113th Commando Regiment and watched Colonel Do Tan Bin, the regiment commander, later Mr. Bin was promoted to Major General, commander of the Commando Arms, perform the Mai Hokkien form, it made me remember that Cu Chi mother again. The old woman whose both eyes were blind, who went through so many years of hardships and losses, yet still believed that the revolution would succeed and still courageously sheltered the Viet Cong, the Liberation Army. If only that old mother could have lived to witness the day of total victory, how wonderful it would have been. You have just finished listening to part 1. Please stay tuned to listen to part 2, The Fierce Battles. Thank you sincerely for your time. Please remember to click subscribe, like, and share to support our channel.